renewables, but clearly greener than all other fossil fuels. So clearly, natural gas has come to stay for several years to come. Well, I think the N.I.E.S is intended to be an international energy summit, right, which means that it's open to global participation. But having said that, there is an increasing argument for the continent of Africa, right, to start to have a more strategic and consolidated view of the world in terms of energy, right, and our approach to energy transition. And so for that reason, one can explain or one can justify the reason why the Energy Summit should, even if it's not focused on Africa, should have a significant part of its attention around the continent and the continent's participants in the sector. I think it's an interesting question. The next few years will probably be the most unpredictable few years in the history of most African nations from an energy perspective. Because we're moving away from a very well-established energy environment, which is crude oil dominated, to one that is more around a transition. Now, the dilemma about the transition is that there are various variables that would impact on how quickly it would happen or the way it's going to happen and so on and so forth. So to say exactly what's going to happen in Africa over the next 5 years is going to be quite an ambitious thing. I think different countries would have different responses. So you have countries that have a lot of young people and significant prosperity. Such countries may see a very accelerated move towards the electric vehicles, the electrification, renewable type energy, right? Other countries that are not quite as prosperous, right, and a little bit more aged, will see a bit of a slower transition, right? And then countries like Nigeria that are, resource rich in terms of natural gas and crude oil, right? You begin to see them take a very anchored move towards that. It's basically saying that the next 5 years or more in Africa will be the most unpredictable on a continental basis, and that's because we're moving from an era where we had such stability from an energy perspective, focused on the fossil fuel crude oil, to an era of change where we're going to be moving towards renewables. And the journey in between is going to vary for different countries, basically. So you see countries that are have a lot of young people and a very prosperous country. Such countries may move faster towards the electrification of their energy system, where you see electric cars and all sorts of things happen faster. Other countries that are less prosperous may have a slightly different trajectory. Countries like Nigeria that are energy intensive in terms of resources, a lot of gas, a lot of crude oil, will see a more managed transition, right, in which natural gas begins to take a prominent role in the short to medium term, and concurrently renewables happening over there. I also expect that during those next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see different kinds of collaborations between the African countries as they begin to galvanize their opinions in the global energy state. And we're beginning to see some of that between Nigeria, Equatorial Guinea, with a gas supply project that is about to start, and many others like that. So it's going to be an interesting couple of years ahead of us, and I think that in the end, the countries that are adaptable will be the most successful. One must congratulate the organizers of the N.I.E.S, and in particular the Minister of Petroleum. This has become a tradition, and every year it gets better. I think that this year is particularly important as it formally marks the beginning of a transition for Nigeria, but for the continent as a whole. And it appears the subjects for discussion are very well taken. So I wish all of us a very good sort of couple of days here, and more importantly, I hope that we can translate the outcome of this into real action for our countries, into real action policies, interventions, collaborations between the different countries and operators. In the end, what matters most is how we can deliver sustainable energy solutions for our countries.